lot of interesting things from the Combine last night. Rich was front and center with his buddy Daniel Jeremiah. He joins us now from Indianapolis to tell us all about it. Welcome to your show, Rich. How we doing?
How are you guys today?
Welcome to your show.
What up, Rich?
Hey, buddy.
How are you?
We're good. We're good.
Spectacular.
I was doing my radio gig last night, critiquing the quarterbacks and everything, so I had it on mute. But a friend of mine, Andrew Perloff, said you gave me a little shout out there about my like for Carson Strong. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And boy, he's his last name is appropriate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He can bring it, man.
He can throw it. He can throw it like nobody else's business. What was your biggest takeaway? We have a lot of things to talk about with you from the Combine, but what was your biggest takeaway covering it from beginning to end with the wideouts and quarterbacks last night?
Well, I think yet another draft where the wide receiver position will just keep stocking up teams with one after another of kids that can really change the game. I mean, the last 2 years, you've seen a rookie receiver from LSU come in and transform an offense that he joins. And you'd be hard pressed to sit here and say that somebody that we saw last night won't do the same. I mean, they're all really, really good, and they caught the ball well. They ran very well. Olave and Garrett Wilson in seeing them with my own two eyes really was amazing. I thought the wide receiver position is stocked, and I'm not surprised now. To be very honest with you, I don't know if you can connect dots, but you see, like, say, a veteran like Cole Beasley suddenly might not be back with the Bills. Like,
right.
That's a headline that just popped in the last half hour. I mean, if you want to go ahead and draft a kid in the 4th or 5th round, I think he can actually start for your team. That's what I saw last night. And then the quarterback spot, I mean, Malik Willis had me at hello. He's got a big arm. He's got some big game. And as I tweeted out last night, even during the broadcast, if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm like, yes, please. And the response I got from Steve Smith on the turf, and then, of course, through some other people on Twitter, was like, how do you know he's going to be there at 20? I mean, I think he's going to get pushed up, and he might even be the first guy off the board. Yeah,
there's a lot of hype that comes into it, and I always knew this was going to be the case, right? Anytime between when the Super Bowl ends to when the Combine happens and then ultimately the draft, the spin, the hype train, all of it plays into the quarterback's advantage, and ultimately there's going to be general managers out there that fear they're going to miss out on the next great quarterback, and they'll do and move heaven and earth to go get that.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of the it factor. I know, the fact that he played at Liberty means not many people saw him play, but he was at Auburn. He was an Auburn kid. He was an Auburn kid for a couple of years, and when Auburn went to Bo Nix after Stidham left, that's when he transferred, and he's got big game, man. I saw him. I thought Desmond Ridder had a nice night last night, but again, you're just sitting there in workout clothes, and there's really no adversity other than the fact that you've been poked and prodded for 3.5 days beforehand, and then you have to get out on the field. It's just not a really, and that's why people love their pro days a little bit better. That you don't go through the gauntlet of the medical and the
psychological,
the interviews. I mean, it really is. I mean, this is just the end of the Combine. They're done, and there's a relief when you're done with it. But it's the most important part of it because it is the physical, attributes that got many of these kids to the invitation of the Combine. So outside of all that, like, you just don't know. It's just part of a puzzle, the piece of the puzzle. You hear that all the time. But this draft tonight, I think you're going to see maybe the first overall pick out there with one of the offensive linemen tonight. That's the way it's going to go. And I know that last year there were only 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 3 picks. We may not see one in the top 10 this year. offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and maybe one of the Ohio State wide receivers, whichever one you like.
Speaking of those wide receivers, right? Chris Olave ran a 4.29 unofficial, and then we saw Tyquan Thornton at the wide receiver position run the 4.21 that looked like it broke the record. What was your impression there when that happens? Because Brockman and I were talking about this, right? The fact they go and run it, and it's a drop the mic moment. Like, I just broke the record. Fast out there. I know they say unofficial, but whatever. I'm not going to run a second time, and then an hour later comes back that it was 7/100ths of a second off.
Olave wound up running a 4.39, and we didn't get those times until DJ and I, Daniel Jeremiah and I, were walking back to the hotel.
Yeah,
and we stayed on a half an hour after the on-field drills were done. And we're like, if Olave had known that, do you think he would have just rested and on his laurels? And what do you think he would have maybe run it again? And, the answer is maybe, but I don't think it's any – again, the difference between him running a 4.28 and a 4.39 with the clear eye-in-the-sky tape
right.
on him. I honestly don't think it makes a difference as to whether somebody's going to draft him in this spot or that spot. I mean, the 4.39 just shows he's fast.
He's fast. He's capable.
He's incredible. Now, it's for somebody like, the kid from Baylor who we saw 4.21. And look, I don't know what happened last night, to be honest with you, because we had a simulcam all set up for Olave and Terry McLaurin, who ran a 4.35, and and we saw on the simulcam that McLaurin beat Olave, and we're like, okay, so that's why we say these times are unofficial,
right?
Like when we say it, we mean it. Now the yellow line during an NFL game, it's pretty official, but I mean these times are truly unofficial, where they're started with a hand time, and then somebody hits a button once the kid is off and running, and it's supposed to match up with the electronic time that's on first movement it's supposed to go. And then, we have a hand timer in case that electronic goes down, then we'd use that. But the electronic was off last night. There's no question about it, and hopefully they'll get it fixed for tonight.
Yeah, well, we better hope that the electronics are off for you. Maybe we can get it under 6:05 when you run it here in about a month.
Well, I mean, everyone's saying that, again, my plan is to run it in a few weeks in Los Angeles, just like I did last year. And everyone was like, you should get out there because it looked a fast track. Like this.
It was a fast track last night. Yeah, fast track.
It was the way it looked. But,
One of the cooler things of the night I saw, and it looked like you enjoyed. You had Giovanni in the booth with you and DJ. Talk to us a little bit about that and how much fun you had with that experience.
Well, he's a sweet kid from Philly who's now moved to Indianapolis because, his dad got a job out here, and it interestingly enough happened just as his favorite Eagle, Carson Wentz, came out here too, and so he had tickets to the Combine. I saw it on Twitter, and as soon as he tweeted out, "Hey, I'm going to the Combine," the NFL Network did its due diligence and got him in the booth. And it was pretty cool. He's a sweet kid. I've been on his show. And, even though he lives out here in the Midwest, he still has his Philly roots. When I asked him, hey, Howie Roseman might be listening to you right now, what would your message be to him? And he's like, well, Howie, draft us wide receivers, and for the love of God, get us linebackers. It's what he said, for the love of God. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Then he did meet Roseman and Sirianni later, and then he went out after he was done in the booth. He went and hung out on the digital broadcast with Colleen Wolfe, who, as you know, is Philly through and through. So it was really sweet. And, there's so much crap and awfulness going on in our world that to see a kid who loves the game and loves talking about the game, just being here and then hanging out with us, to make that happen, that's what it's all about. So that was pretty cool. Great chance to meet him. He does love the game. He does know the game. That's why people dig him.
Yeah,
because they feel his warmth and his essence, and I'm glad he was on the network last night.
Well, it was really fun to see, and just from somebody who was viewing it, you just the expression on both yours and DJ's faces made it. I mean, that even makes it. You just were enjoying yourself so much, and that's really meaningful to see that coming from you.
It was beautiful. Did you see the music that I was telling you about? Did you hear the music I was telling you about in the first part? I know you said that the sound was down, but
yeah.
You other guys?
You said it got shut down, huh, Rich?
Oh yeah. The music got shut down. As I said during the broadcast last night, I asked Daniel Jeremiah what was a shorter tenure in the history of the NFL, the music at the Combine or Bill Belichick as the head coach of the Jets. That's what I asked him on the air last night.
What was the
music?
What was the reason?
As the music started playing, you could just see the scouts in the stands kind of look at each other like, who left the radio on? Like, what's going on? I don't know if they got that much of a heads up. There were 10,000 fans there last night.
Wow.
So I guess that they were trying to create an atmosphere for the fans, and so they started playing music. But the problem is the music was kind of, it was intrusive in the fact that, for instance, that they announce on a loudspeaker who's running, who's not, who's running because they have a medical issue, and who's not running because they just don't want to, and that they'll run at the pro day. And those announcements are made, certainly the more important announcements being, who's running a second time. So, like, for instance, when Olave doesn't run a second time, they announce, Chris Olave essentially elects to, not running it.
Right.
Or Malik Willis is not running. He'll run at its pro day. Like, they literally make those announcements. And scouts and GMs couldn't hear the announcements.
Couldn't hear those things.
There's music playing.
No.
So there were, some messages that were kind of sent up the chain of command, and all of a sudden, it was quiet as a church in there.
I got to push back on this, Rich. I know you were texting us about it, and I kind of, said it was whack. But, these scouts, it's not for them, okay? It's a television event for fans, and
Chris.
It's turning into this big type of tentpole off-season event as we head into the draft, right? The evaluation period, okay? We can set up some kind of text service for the scouts if they really want to know if a guy isn't going to run a second time. Like, someone with the NFL can get everyone's phone numbers on a file and hit one big group text, and Chris Olave will not be running a second grade. Everyone's got their phone on. Beep, 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 beep. Keep the music on. If you're going to have 10,000 fans there and make this into this big thing, the scouts have to take a back seat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's not what this thing is.
It is what it is now,
it is
though.
For the scouts, Chris. This is literally.
Then what are the pro days for? One or the other. One or the other.
The pro days are initially for other scouts that are in the area, or kids that were not invited to the Combine. Like, not every kid isn't. There's only 325 invites to this thing.
If I'm a player, if I'm the players next year, I'm saying I'm not going to the Combine unless music's rocking. That's the deal now.
You know what? I don't know if that's the hill they want to die on that front, but like for instance, Georgia has the most kids here, but not all their kids here.
Yeah.
And then there might be some small schools around Georgia, around Athens, that might send some kids there. So it's just another way. Pro days are just another way. Look, the Combine is essentially the reason why it exists, and the reason why it will always exist is for the medical examinations.
Right.
And for some of the face-to-face interviews.
Exactly.
And while we're at it, doing all of these on-field drills, while everybody's there, that's the reason why it was created. So now the fact that the NFL is coming in with some fans and trying to make it a fan experience, it still doesn't intrude on what this is all about, which is the on-field drills and the medical evaluations. And the NFL Network itself has been making, a dance around that for 17, 18 years. So,
but you can't ask everyone else to adapt and then the scouts just to go about business as usual like they have been for the last 30 years. Like, they have to adapt as well. And if it means, putting in some buds so you don't have to hear the music, then so be it.
Well, it's kind of like, Chris, let's just put it this way. Let's just say you've done something a certain way for a very long time, and you're trying to broaden things out for others, or people who are coming in to try and broaden it out for others. Let's say your burger draft, right? You want to get more people at your burger draft, and you're going to allow a couple of people to eat whatever they want, because other than that, then they won't attend, right? Let's just say you're trying to expand your audience for it, right? You'll still be saying, screw that, right? Screw that. You come here, you got to eat only what burger is drafted for you, right? Wouldn't you say that after all that time?
But if I want to play music and you want to have a conversation, just like talk over the music.
The scouts are you for your burger draft. You get it? And they're like, turn the music off.
You don't need music.
While they don't have a tech system set up. I will say this, though. The fans were fun in the fact that when David Bell, by the way, we nailed the glue guys.
No, we
nailed.
We were on it.
There were like four Gorilla Glue guys last night alone, and so when David Bell, Purdue, he went to high school 12 miles down the road. When he did anything, like
it was loud, yeah.
Anything, fans were cheering. They were like, "I have never heard before." David Bell goes through the gauntlet drill. He's done with it. Huge standing ovation. It was
That's awesome.
So weird. Now, scouts should get used to that because it's just applause. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing. And anytime there were like 10 dudes, drunk dudes, like probably from like Columbus, anytime Olave and Garrett Wilson did anything, and this was late at night when half the crowd was gone, they were going ape anytime they did anything. And
dotting the I in the stands.
Yeah, and then when they were doing the go routes, the quarterbacks, and your guy Strong from Nevada, Malik Willis, and whoever could really crank it and throw it downfield, 60 yards in the air, and then they completed it, everybody went crazy. And that was fun. Like, there was actually energy in the building for that. And I hope, scouts or whomever don't have a problem with that. But plus the music sucked. I don't know who chose it. It really wasn't good. Kind of like it's like stuck in the largest elevator ever. It really just is not. I think just all around it was
clearly the players didn't choose the music.
I was
going
to say, here's the move. Next year when the quarterbacks are throwing, let the quarterback who's throwing have control of the playlist.
Just kind of like the walkout music.
Individualized playlist for the workouts.
Oh gosh!
I don't know if everyone was on the same page going in.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, they certainly ripped that page out of the book and
in a hurry. In a hurry. Hey, I want to talk into one thing outside the combine, but first I want to speak to the Kenny Pickett news. It was just a punchline all day long, right? 8.5-inch hands, these tiny hands. How can he even function as a player? All these things,
right.
And then NFL Network, right? Right there, cameraman right next to him. He's not oblivious to the guy, filming his hands and not his body or his face. It's looking right at his hands. And then he goes out and I thought performed as good as anybody last night. He was compact, he was accurate, he was fluid in everything he did. Talk to us a little bit about that, and how do you think his performance came out after all the scrutiny of the hands? That's something that he can't control.
Oh yeah, I mean he'll be a first-round quarterback. There's no doubt. I mean, there's no question that he'll go in the first round. DJ Daniels said that there will be some teams that will literally take him off their boards because he's only got 8.5-inch hands, and I can't imagine that would be such a problem. I mean, the guy wears gloves for a reason, I think. He gets a nice grip on it. Kurt Warner was on the field. He was Mr. wearing gloves and domes his entire career. Better grip. I mean, I don't know. Kid ran sub 4.7. I mean, he's really athletic, and he's tall, and he's good, and he's done it in Pittsburgh. So, as I said on the show yesterday, Desmond Ritter's got 10-plus inch hands and fumbled it over 30 times in Cincinnati. So, I don't know. You tell me.
I thought he was. Yeah, I just thought he was great last night.
He looked good.
Yep.
He looked good. There's no question about that.
All right. One thing outside the combine purview, the conversation, and Adam Schefter reporting that Amari Cooper there in Dallas may be released before the league year starts. Your thoughts on that and what that accomplishes for the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I mean, look, when they signed Cooper and Zeke, and knowing that Dak was going to get his money, and then he did. I mean, how many teams can have a quarterback, running back, wide receiver combination count for what, like $70 million on your cap? I mean, no matter how large the cap number keeps going up by whatever margin, I mean, at some point that's just not sustainable. And the fact that Zeke's still around is kind of amazing, because you'd think the running back would be the one with the quickest expiration date. But it was obvious that Amari Cooper was no longer, the number one target in the offense last year, that it was CeeDee Lamb 100%. The fact that Amari Cooper would essentially have to speak up, which he never does, to say, hey, I'm still here, definitely was odd, to say the least. And again, I just saw all those kids last night at the wide receiver position. I mean,
Right.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Why
would you pay?
Cooper's terrific, and he's still very young. You're talking about a $20 million hit of some sort, or close to it, I'd imagine. I think it was $100 million contract he signed. Again, I don't know what phony money was in it or what he would count for this year. Or how
I think it's $16 million. I think it's $16 million they save.
It's a huge chunk of change.
Yeah.
It's a huge chunk of change. I know that Gallup is hurt, and but that doesn't surprise me. It just doesn't. And then the fact that he was one of their few unvaccinated players still on the team last year, I think, really rankled the Joneses. And it's interesting. Again, the COVID protocols yesterday were shelved. But still, what will linger is somebody at a time when all they had to do was take a shot, and that would give them a better chance to win, and they did not, is something that I think will linger in the mind's eye of front offices and ownership. And I think you put it all together, and that's one of the reasons why Cooper will be on another team. And, obviously there will be some teams that will jump all over him, certainly when you got to start from scratch on his contract. But it didn't really surprise me to hear that today.
We did a most likely with Chris Brockman today, and he prefaced one of these for our friend here, TJ Jefferson. Is it most likely that the Dallas Cowboys play in a Super Bowl, or
Rich, who plays in a
Amari
Super
Cooper
Bowl
does?
first, Cowboys or Amari Cooper?
Oh, that's a good one. How was that? How'd you answer?
Well, of course, TJ was the Dallas Cowboys, but us in the real world said Amari Cooper, because he'll probably end up with the Chiefs or the Rams or the Patriots or something like that.
Yeah, right. Could you imagine him on the Chiefs? I mean, he always
That's what I said.
His best games for the Raiders against the Chiefs. He had, I think, a couple of 200-yard games against them. So I'll take what's more likely, Cooper elsewhere rather than Dallas without him.
All right, Rich.
What do you know, Rich? What do
as
you know?
always, thanks so much for taking time out to help us out.
Thanks for doing this.
Appreciate you for the trust again with your platform. It's been amazing 3 days. So you enjoy your rest of the trip, and we'll see you soon.
You got it. I'm at 4 Eastern today, tomorrow, and then 2 Eastern on Sunday, and then back in that chair on Monday.
All right. We'll leave it warm for you.
Take it to you guys.
Rich Eisen from the Rich Eisen Show joining us from Indianapolis.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.